Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzales. We have Mr. Glenn Beck back with us, back from CPAC.
Yes.
Yay!
With some observations on CPAC today.
Yes. All right. Is that your top story?
Yeah, the things that I learned at CPAC.
Okay. All right. Stu.
I guess I'll go with the vote on the national emergency on the border.
Okay. Andrew.
What are the most partisan counties in America? We're going to talk about that.
All right. I can't wait to find out about that. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. So, I know, Sarah, you used to be fat, blah, blah, blah. You're not anymore. Okay, cool.
I love doing that. I just love doing that. Look, see, because you get that face. And the great thing is, I'm not married to her. Don't have to date her.
Okay, well, I'm going to call Tanya and tell her what you said to me.
Don't.
But in all seriousness, if you are trying to lose the extra bit of weight and you just can't seem to figure out a way to get it off, might I suggest Riduzone? Try it and see if it works for you. The folks at Riduzone, it's not like a bunch of crazy chemicals that they put into a pill and you take it and you're jittery all day. It's just, it contains OEA, which stands for something that I can't actually pronounce. It's this really long word, but
Cocaine?
It's not cocaine.
Speed?
No, it's meth. But it's the good molecule in olive oil that helps boost your metabolism and reduce your appetite. I use it to maintain my weight. It works like a charm for me. Try it and see if it works for you. Go to riduzone.com. Use promo code THEBLAZE. Get 30% off of a 3-month supply. That is riduzone.com for you podcast listeners. Glenn, what did you learn at CPAC?
I learned that the state of the republic is more fragile than I thought, not as unified as I had hoped. I was impressed by the number of people that were there. I was impressed by the age that was there. About half of the 9,000, 10,000 people that were there were around the age of 25. So I thought that was good. However, I asked over and over and over again, what are the two things that we have to take care of? And it's the two things that we can only take care of, that Washington's not going to take care of, and that is abortion, because if I heard it once, I heard it 1,000 times. We're not even talking about abortion anymore, Glenn. We're now talking about infanticide. Heard that over and over again. And the second thing, socialism. And when I said, how do we affect socialism? The answer from 25-year-olds was, I don't think you're going to. Everybody loves it. Everybody thinks it's neat, and no one knows what they're talking about. And they said, we have flushed this generation away. This generation, the millennials, they all think it's neat. They all don't know what it is. And they said, no one's going to be listening to the talking heads on television. They're not relating to anyone on television. Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Ali, that's it. That's it. And who is teaching about socialism? That kind of worried me, because as we've been talking the last few weeks, if the economy goes into a nosedive, what was that poll today? 41% of the American people are for socialism. Wasn't that it? Do you remember?
Sure, which poll that one?
We read it on the air today.
39% of the American people don't know what the definition of socialism is then.
Yes, I know, yeah. But it's a frighteningly high number of the people who are like, I'm cool with socialism, but they don't know what it means.
Sharing, right, Glenn? Isn't that the definition of socialism? Just being a nice person on a government level?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Democratic Socialists have done a really good job. You got to tip the hat to them for creating a message that does make it about sharing and about equality, which I think was something that you addressed in your speech.
Yeah, we just talked about it on the show here just a few minutes ago. It's equality of outcomes. Well, there is no fairness in equality of outcomes, and that's what we really have to preach to our kids at home. Is show them, okay, you and your sister went out for Halloween, great. I'm going to take all of the candy. I'm going to take 40% of it, and then I'm going to make sure that your sister, who's younger than you are has exactly the same number. But Mom, I went to more doors. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's equality. That's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
To be really accurate, you also need to lose a lot of the candy that you take from your kid.
Yes.
And
yes.
then, like, just randomly, like, I don't know, try and turn it into corn or something weird like that. Like this.
It is truly amazing, though, how this younger generation, they're thriving right now from capitalism. They're thriving off of the capitalist society that we have created. And in this backwards world, still think that they're so oppressed and, they have their latest iPhone while they're talking about, how socialism is good.
I've never seen an easier case to make the capitalism in my entire life than right now.
Yeah.
And yet you don't hear it.
Bryan Cranston did a movie about a blacklisted Hollywood writer. I can't think of that stupid name.
No.
It's something with a B. It's driving me crazy.
Trumbo.
Thank you, Trumbo. I knew there was a B in there somewhere. So Trumbo, and there's a part where he's a communist, and he's explaining to his daughter, who doesn't understand, like, why are you a communist? And he has a sandwich, and he legitimately gives almost the exact same example, except he says it in the most nicest way. It's like, I have a sandwich. Would you like to give? Can I give you half of the sandwich? And she's like, well, yeah, that would be great. Well, why don't you just get a job? That's capitalism. Get a job, earn the sandwich. Or you could be nice and give the sandwich. That's socialism. It's like, that is like not socialism at all. But I mean, you're talking to a group of people who, up until about their mid-20s, were not alive during Soviet communism, and you're up to the upper 20s before they could even remember it.
But here's the good news, I think, is that it's already decaying and already falling apart on itself. When you look at the people who say transgender, and here's the thing, justice and fairness do come out of capitalism, okay? Not equality, but justice and fairness. So when people say, look at this transgender person, they just want to play baseball. Okay, well, the fairness in all of us say, you know what? Let's be just. Let's let that person play baseball, and they can play on the boys' team and everything else. But then that's equality as well. And this is where it breaks down. Capitalism will not treat that person as an equal because they are not equal. If it's a girls' softball team and you're a boy, nope. We can all be.
Thank you for thinking that I would be competitive on a girls' softball team. That's very kind of you.
We could all be nice about it, and we can all want fairness, but you're not going to get equality. Instead, what they do is they put you on that team, and now all the girls are like, he pretends he's a man, and he's really a girl. And he can't play worth salt. Can you give us some other transgendered besides Andrew?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah. No, but that's what's happening. We're seeing it now with the sports. The girls, their instinct is to be fair. But once that fairness turns around and it's no longer fair to them, well, wait a minute. How do we be fair to both? Can't.
Well, there was a female, I believe this was on the Blaze, the news story. There was a female high school sprinter, and she was beat in the championship, and she was ranked third, and the top two people who won were both transgender athletes. And she spoke out and said that I'm happy for them that they have the courage to be who they want to be, but it's wrong.
Right. So now what do you do?
Yeah.
Now what do you do? Socialism would say nothing. Well, no, but that doesn't work. And I think it's starting to come apart because people are starting to see the fruits of it. I mean, you could change everyone in college's point of view immediately if you said everybody who gets an A is now going to get a C, and everyone who had an F gets a C. We're just redistributing. Everybody gets a C. You would see the people in college go crazy because they know merit matters.
So is that the solution then, do you think? Because you said that these young people are like, we can't do anything about it. Is that the solution, is just to let them start seeing the fruits of this?
No, I don't think we can let them see the fruits of it because it gets too ugly too fast. I mean, we are on the edge. If this economy goes down with Donald Trump in office, he's got to get 11% more people really in his column, or he'll lose. If he loses to a Democratic socialist and they lose the House and the Senate, what do you think is going to happen? That new Green Deal is going to be passed, and that is a fundamental change in the economy.
Yeah, I mean, I love inequality. I think it's wonderful. If you have merit, you must have inequality. It's just true. If you want to get rid of inequality, you must get rid of merit as a measure, and I don't think that's a good thing. I mean,
we also, by virtue, the Declaration of Independence, the right to pursue happiness. I may not have the same happiness as all of you do. I've no desire to work 70 hours a week as a financial, like a stockbroker. I have friends that do, that they enjoy doing that, and they getting a lot more money is more important to them. I didn't want to do that. Very happy with my job right now, by the way. But were I to leave here, I'd be like, well, I'm going to try and do 30 hours a week or make less. And I have that ability within our system, because within our system, you get to determine what's the extent of money you want to earn and all that kind of thing. When you try and push it all together, nope, we're all going to have the same thing.
That's the thing when it comes to women and their pays. If you look at women totally, and you see what they choose, they generally choose to go home, have children. They are not, generally speaking, the ones on the treadmill that are going 80 hours a week and are trying to put food on the table and have this big, long career. Some choose that, and they should be paid equally for the equal amount of work and what they're doing. But if you're looking at, well, you're a male, you're a female, well, okay, we should treat you equally, but the minute he starts pulling ahead because you have different priorities in your life, then it shouldn't be equal anymore. There's no equal outcome on that.
Stu, I want to move on to the national emergency at the border.
yeah, I tossed around doing Hickenlooper Mania or Inslee Palooza. I could have done that as well. I just decided we have a lot of time to talk horse race stuff, so let's do this emergency declaration thing. It's interesting, Rand Paul came out and said, look, I believe there is a real problem on the border, and I've talked to the president about it. I support him and his border security actions, but I can't give any more power to the executive branch. I don't think he should be, the power of the purse is ours, not his. So he will be voting against Trump for the bill that would stop this national emergency. That vote puts the Senate over the line, so they will likely, unless something changes, reject this emergency, and it will go up to Trump, who will then veto it. It's going to be interesting to see now. Go ahead.
Did Mike Lee still on the fence? I think
he has not announced his vote. I do fully expect him to vote the same way.
I think and hope so. Yeah.
Yep. And there will be others. You have like these different lines. No one wants to be the deciding vote. So like the first line is let's all the first one's like Susan Collins and Tom Tillis all rushed out to get their vote out there first, because there's 3 vote. The best gold vote slots are the ones you get out there before it overturns. So you only get to 50. So there's 3 slots there. The first 3 that get out there aren't the deciding vote to overturn Trump, and they could take a principled stand. Then you need someone really brave who has some principled background. Rand Paul was the person in this case who takes that 51st vote. Now it's going to be rejected. Now you have room for a lot of other people to jump on in and take their principled stance without hurting Trump, because they have to get to 67 votes to overturn this veto. They will not get there. I expect it to be somewhere between maybe 57 and 61. I do think you'll get Mike Lee and Ted Cruz. You'll also get some people from purple states like a Cory Gardner, who will be able to kind of step in and say, well, the border is important, but I get to take this stand, and I can say to my voters later on that I rejected Trump. This is a very cynical reading of this, but I do think it's pretty much what's going on. I think all of the senators, all of them, are uncomfortable with the way that this is being done, but most of them are not going to step up. The other thing, too, is if they did somehow get to over 67 votes, it's a little unclear, but it's not exactly clear that they would even have to take it up to overturn the veto. So if they got to, let's say, 70 votes, then McConnell could just not call a vote on this particular bill to overturn it, and it wouldn't get overturned anyway. So it is like, this is all sort of a ridiculous act. And it's left a bunch of Republicans in impossible positions. We've heard a lot of people have said, and Ted Cruz mentions this to you a little bit when he was on the air with you at CPAC. I know Ben Shapiro kind of said the same thing, which is kind of like a way to say to Trump, look, don't do the emergency thing. You're setting a terrible precedent. It's probably not constitutional. So instead, redirect funds through these already existing processes, and you can get just as much or more as you were going to get from the emergency anyway, and you can just build the wall. Now, of course, if that were real, why wouldn't he just start there? Why is he going to ask Nancy Pelosi's permission to get this money if he could just do it? I think everybody knows it's not a good idea if he starts doing these things. And even with the current way that some Republicans are arguing to do this, one of the situations is they'll say, okay, well, there's money allocated in the defense budget for, I believe it's housing for military people, and they've already started to build the housing. Well, they can take the money away from that and they can build the wall. Now, of course, no sensible politician, right, would take money away from housing for the military. That would be crazy. So what they'll do is after they move the money from the housing for the military over to the wall, they'll do a new bill that will just pass the housing to the military money, which, of course, no one can vote against because it's housing for the military. So that is another terrible precedent to set. Oh, just pass a bunch of feel-good stuff. We'll take the money from the feel-good stuff, put it in the stuff we want to do it, and then just fill back up the coffers of the feel-good stuff.
Department of Kittens.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. None of this is a good idea. Get stuff passed through Congress if you want it done. The founders came up with a system that made it difficult for you to do that because they didn't want you to pass everything that feels good because you have 51% support or 45% support or 39% support like the wall seems to have. You have to be able to get it through. If you can't get it through, you don't get it. I know that sucks because I think the border is a really serious issue. We should have had it so many times over the years. We don't have it because it didn't go through Congress, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
All right, he pretty much wrapped it up, summed it up quite nicely.
I don't want to hear from any of you people on this. That was my segment.
They're just hippies.
Before we jump back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So Relief Factor is for people who just live in constant pain and think that that's just something that we should be doing.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily constant, like, oh my gosh, I cannot live another day. It's also just like, my neck always hurts, or my arms hurt, or that old.
It's just getting old.
Tompkins gland.
That old women's softball injury.
Oh, yeah. That old thing is just flaring up on me. The old war wound. Those things. And it reduces inflammation. It doesn't string you out. It doesn't hook you on anything. It's all natural. And you can try it for 3 weeks, and if it doesn't work, you're not out anything. I mean, $90.
Well, that's not,
but that's
pain.
70% of the people who try it, they try this 3-week quick start, go on to keep buying it. Why are you laughing at me?
No, I'm not laughing at you. Boy, you are
wow.
self-centered, isn't she?
I just find pain funny in general.
So anyway, try it out, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Go there and get your life back.
All right, Andrew, talking partisan counties?
Talk about the most partisan counties in America. There was a fascinating project that the Atlantic put together where they got a bunch of quantifying data and they went through, and I'll throw up the picture on the full screen there. They went through all 3,000 counties in America, and they did a combination of polling, and they did a few other things as well. I think they looked at households where voter registration was different between married couples and things like that, but a significant portion of it was polling. One of the big questions they asked is, would you be bothered if someone in your family married a Democrat if you're a Republican or vice versa? And saw which states, which counties have the most partisan, prejudiced counties. The darker you see, that is the more partisan it is. Wow. I have no idea why, like all of Florida is just this crazy handbag of partisanship.
And almost all of South Carolina.
Yeah, and then you look at like North Carolina, fine. Like North Carolina, I have no idea what accounts for that. It looks like maybe Utah, and I'll say this too. I don't know, and that might also be. Not knowing the data specifically in Utah, it could be that like Democrats in Utah or Republicans in Utah, it may not be across the board. The county that takes the cake, though, for the most partisan prejudiced county in America is Suffolk County, Massachusetts, which is where Boston is located. I don't want to paint the picture that it's just sort of a radiating thing from like the capital of progressivism and it gets more. There's lots of partisan conservative counties as well. But what I found really interesting about this was the predominant factors that account for partisan prejudice and assumptions that I'm right and other people are evil tends to be if you're white, college educated, affluent. Those tend to be the things because you presumably can kind of create your own zone of people that you're dealing with in a way that other people don't have.
You know, I have to point something out. You'll notice that is actually Colorado. It's northern Colorado and western Colorado. And the most white anywhere on the map besides the Great Lakes is Utah and southern Idaho. And if I can give you a story on this that might account for this, when Utah was going through statehood, they were all Republicans because they were all vehemently against slavery and everything else, and they had been kicked out of Missouri because they were trying to influence against slavery. So they were really hated. So they were die-hard Republicans. So when Brigham Young brings them into Utah, and now they have to vote on statehood, he said, we're never going to get anywhere if we're all Republicans. So this half of the church, you're Republicans. This half, you're now Democrats. And they did that in every meeting house all in Utah. And some people still I've been a Democrat since the beginning in Utah. And so they have this different look at politics to where just because where they were sitting in the aisle might mean that it might mean that they just always voted that way. Mm-hmm. And they still kind of come together. It's amazing how much white is on that map.
Which is fantastic. Hats off to Utah in that capacity.
There's a lot of whites. You like that?
Exactly. That was
unbelievable.
That's yeah.
And that is a phrase that has been uttered. Wow, look at all the white in Utah.
I mean, you see these. I don't know all of the differences that account for the various states and counties, but I generally like it when I can be in a place where if I disagree with somebody in terms of what their party is, I'm not viewing them as in sin, I'm viewing them as an error. I think there's a difference fundamentally between viewing people as evil bigots when you disagree with them versus being mistaken when you disagree with them. Yeah. And for me, like me being a fairly dyed-in-the-wool independent, like I really don't like partisanship because then it's just people hate. I'm always in the crosshairs. I don't get to sit out of the fight. So
well, let me be the first to say that I think that opinion is evil.
Thank you, Stu.
Actually, let me.
It's not the opinion. It's really you.
It's really you as a person. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So you're judging me based on character, and I'm failing based on character. Okay, all right, that's fine.
And a little bit of a defense to political prejudice. I think like prejudice at like skin color and all that stuff, I've never even understood. It's so completely inane. But when you're talking about a political viewpoint, like that's telling you something about the person, right? Like there's a choice involved, and I like a lot of times when you're talking to someone who's more like-minded, they're going to understand where you're going with something. They're not going to assume the worst about you. And I think like people, I think because we sit here and talk about it all the time, it's very easy for me to go talk to a Democrat about some controversial issue because I know where they're kind of coming from, and I know where I'm coming from, and I know where the boundaries of the debate are, and you know that. For the average person, though, that doesn't live and die politics, it's just ease of life. Like if you go in there and you say something, and you know what, maybe the person's not as refined on the point they're trying to make about, let's say, immigration, right? They might not necessarily, they know generally where they stand, but they might not have all the nuances. if you say something wrong and the person you're talking to takes offense to it and it winds up blowing up into this big thing, I think people surround themselves with like-minded people because it's just easier. It's not the focus of their life, and they don't want their life to blow up because of politics.
Well,
and it's tempting, I think, for the average person.
Generally, as a species, gather together in packs because it's what we had to do to survive when, ancient man, and it's still in us. You're part of my tribe, and I want my tribe around in case there's an attack. And we all, both sides, feel like we're under attack, so it's not unusual that we would start to become very tribal.
All right, back in a minute.
We can all agree, though, that Sarah's evil, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so.
This is really, thank you.
Yeah.
Sexist.
Fat, sure.
President's not their party.
All right, so Mr. Andrew Heaton, you have a podcast.
I do.
It's called Something's Off with Andrew Heaton.
Something's Off with Andrew Heaton. You should check it out. It's
The title is very true to form,
Yeah, and true.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Find it wherever you get your podcast.
Check it out. It's funny and thoughtful. I bring on interesting people, policy wonks and comedians. Tomorrow, I'm bringing on Senator Mike Lee. I'm going to talk about balancing the Constitution, or about balancing federalism within the Constitution. And today I had on Catherine Mengue Ward from Reason talking about Marie Kondo. So there's lots of different things that I bring on.